Hello there. In 2003, a terrifying news story was published in the Tongren newspaper, Hubei. And from then on, a series of dark and mysterious events began to unfold. The suspect was sentenced to death 3 times after several trials. But in the end, everything took a 180-degree turn. Was this a case of miscarriage of justice, or was there another mystery behind it? The evidence found led to the completely different conclusions, making the investigation as intriguing as a movie. So, what exactly happened? Is the culprit truly guilty? It all started on a dark night on October 27, 2003, in the city of Tongren, Hubei Province, China. The campus of Tongren University suddenly became chaotic and eerie. A male corpse was found under the south doorsteps of the engineering building, and that person was Zhu Ninghuan, a second-year master's student at the university. The police discovered a clear ligature mark on his neck and determined that he died from suffocation. The south gate where the corpse was found was always locked and rarely visited. So how did they find him there? It was a teacher who discovered it. The teacher shared, "I wanted to go out at night while working overtime, and I just wanted to find a dark corner to relieve myself, only to come across such a terrifying corpse." Zhu Ninghuan, 23, was the son of a village host in Hanshan District, Hubei Province. His life suddenly came to an end, and the mystery of this case has lasted for 12 years. Ninghuan was the pride of his village, earning the title of the best graduating student due to his remarkable academic achievements. He was ready to step into the next phase of his life, to have the opportunity to become a master's or doctoral student. Before the horrific incident, Ninghuan worked as a temporary teacher at the school. The incident occurred around midnight, and the school security forces were immediately present at the scene, along with a mysterious couple. The man's name was Tang Yun, a recent graduate student, and the girl was Zhao Jia, who was a Zhu Ninghuan's friend. When Yun arrived at the scene, he was squatting on the ground, holding his head in his hands, showing pain and despair. The police were suspicious when the two appeared at the crime scene in the middle of the night, so they were taken to a security room for questioning. It's now known that Zhao Jia and Zhu Ninghuan had been in love for more than 3 years, and had only broken up the day before. But the love triangle had strained their relationship, as Zhao Jia had fallen in love with Yun. The mysterious death of Zhu Ninghuan raised major questions, and Yun had also become a suspect when at this point his legs were so weak that he couldn't move without assistance from others. But both Yun and Zhao Jia claimed that on the night of the incident, they were together. All evidence failed to prove their involvement in Zhu Ninghuan's death. Until the next morning, Chen Huang, a fellow student and teacher with Zhu Ninghuan, came to report to the police. But surprisingly, he had important information about Ninghuan's death. That around 10 p.m., I was horrified when I walked into room 308 of the engineering building and saw Yun strangling Ninghuan with a piece of cloth rope. The police quickly identified Yun, a recent graduate student, as the main suspect and immediately detained him. Everything that had happened was witnessed by Huang, a close friend of Ninghuan's and also a former classmate of Yun's. So, Yun not only showed no fear, but also asked Huang to help clean up the crime scene. Later, the police found 2 more important pieces of evidence related to Yun. One was in room 308 where the incident took place, where they found traces of the victim lying on the computer chair. Fingerprints left by Yun were collected and analyzed by the police. Additionally, they found a leather shoe print of Yun's on the floor in the room. In Yun's pocket, the police found some suspicious pieces of fabric. Remarkably, those pieces of fabric matched the evidence found at the scene. The composition of the fabric on the ropes used in the crime was the same. Huang's accomplice admitted to helping Yun move the victim's body. Clear drag marks were visible in the hallway. They had moved the corpse downstairs and dumped it next to the engineering building. Based on witness testimonies and evidence, the police declared the case solved. Suspects Yun and Huang were then prosecuted, but the case didn't stop there. On September 10, 2004, the People's Court of Tongren City issued a verdict after the first instance trial. Yun was sentenced to death for intentional homicide. Hua Zhuang was sentenced to life imprisonment as an accomplice. Both defendants were also ordered to compensate the victims' parents for damages. The total cost for the funeral amounted to over 178,000 yuan. However, after the verdict, Yun couldn't contain his emotions. He shouted about injustice in court, even tearing up the verdict, not accepting the verdict. Yun filed an appeal, but little did anyone know that this call for appeal was just the beginning. As the truth about the case became more and more perplexing as suspicions continued to arise. After 10 years, the Legal Aid Center of Hubei Province appointed lawyer Zhang Xiwen to assist Yun. After thorough research of the case files, lawyer Xiwen realized that despite the detailed record of the case, all evidence was full of doubt. Firstly, Yun's motives for the crime raised suspicion. Yun had only registered as a graduate student less than 2 months ago and had no acquaintance with the victim Ninghuan. So, why would he kill Ninghuan? The police investigation concluded that the case was related to emotional conflict. A day before the incident, Zhao Jia and Ninghuan had broken up and returned to Yun. This indicates that Yun and Ninghuan were romantic rivals. Therefore, there's a theory that Yun had a motive to eliminate his rival. However, lawyer Ji Wen argued that he did not fit the human nature because they'd broken up openly, not secretly. After delving deep into Yun's background, lawyer Ji Wen realized that this case had too many doubts. It could truly be a miscarriage of justice, a misunderstanding that could cost an innocent life and fairness. Through his investigation, lawyer Ji Wen learned about Yun's tragic and painful circumstances, which further strengthened his belief in his argument and determination to seek justice for Yun. Yun was born in 1977 into a poor peasant family in a small mountain village in Jiaodong District, Hubei Province. His life was full of tragedy and sorrow. From a very young age, he witnessed his family facing unwarranted calamities. His mother lost her ability to work due to bone necrosis when he was only 2 years old. His father passed away from heart disease when he was just 5 years old. And just a few years later, his beloved older brother went to work and died in an accident at the construction site. To support his younger siblings, their disabled mother had to toil hard, and the family struggled to survive with the help of relatives. However, despite enduring countless hardships and sorrows, Yun always behaved uprightly from a young age. He did not disappoint his family's expectations and was determined to step out of the impoverished mountainous environment. In 1997, he was admitted to the Mechanical Engineering Department of Tongren University, and after 4 years, he graduated with excellent grades. After graduating, Yun found a job at a machinery manufacturing plant owned by a railway conglomerate in Handong. However, he not only worked diligently and achieved success, but was also promoted to deputy workshop manager. During his employment, he continued to self-study and at the same time worked as a tutor to share knowledge and help other students. Finally, with relentless effort, Yun achieved his dream. He decided to return to Tongren University to pursue a master's degree, further expanding his knowledge and research in the field that he was passionate about. After the National Day in 2003, Yun's life took a new turn. He met Zhao Jia, a new classmate. The two often communicated via phone, and as each day passed, their feelings for each other became deeper. However, Yun was unaware that Zhao Jia was going through a difficult phase in her relationship with her ex-boyfriend, Zhu Ninghuan, whom she'd been chatting and dating with for over 3 years. Zhu Ninghuan knew that Zhao Jia had a new lover, and on the afternoon of October 26th, he called Zhao Jia and proposed to end their relationship. The next day after the morning class, Zhao Jia and Zhu Ninghuan had their last lunch together and had a long conversation. Afterward, Zhu Ninghuan told someone else that he had officially broken up with Zhao Jia. Around 6 p.m., Yun called Zhao Jia to invite her to dinner. Everything seemed normal until about 4 hours later, when a sudden tragedy occurred. After Yun and Zhao Jia had dinner, Zhu Ninghuan called and said that due to Zhao Jia's difficult life, she often engaged in prostitution activities. Zhao Jia, half jokingly and half seriously, asked Yun if he believed those words. When Yun heard that, he became confused and immediately denied it. But he still stood by Zhao Jia, whom he wanted to protect, and the person whom Zhu Ninghuan had spoken ill of. At 7:28 p.m., Yun's phone rang. He warned Zhu Ninghuan not to believe in rumors. But on the other end of the line, Zhu Ninghuan seemed immersed in a gloomy mood. He reluctantly said that Zhao Jia was an essential part of his life. Hearing those words, Yun felt a pang in his heart. He felt he needed to withdraw from this love triangle. He and Zhao Jia had only been together for less than 10 days, so their relationship was not deep enough. He didn't want to cause trouble. He just wanted to clarify everything as quickly as possible. And then he clearly expressed his desire for the two of them to reconcile. Eventually, both parties agreed to meet in front of the library. Around 8 p.m., Yun took Zhao Jia to the library. Upon arrival, Yun found Zhao Jia's former classmate, Hua Zhuang, was waiting there with Ninghuan. Without much thought, Yun approached and held the hand of Zhao Jia and Ninghuan. He hoped they would make peace and declared he would no longer be involved in their relationship before turning and walking away. At that moment, Zhao Jia noticed Ninghuan's face turning red and shocked. He then decided to go back to the dormitory with Ninghuan. After taking Ninghuan back, Zhao Jia couldn't hold back her feelings, so she ran to find Yun. The two sat together near her dormitory and started talking. They didn't leave each other until the girl was brought back to the dormitory at 11:32 p.m. Around 10:20 p.m., Ninghuan's body was found, confirming that he did not have time to commit any crimes. Zhao Jia returned to the dormitory that night and couldn't contact Ninghuan. She called Yun to search for him together. The two rushed to the scene after midnight on October 28th when they learned that Ninghuan had died. Yun sat on the ground, believing that Ninghuan had committed suicide for love. Yun regretted stealing Ninghuan's love and asserted that he didn't kill Ninghuan. However, investigators believed Hua Zhuang's confession, who claimed to have witnessed the murder. During the interrogation, Yun felt unable to explain clearly and was tortured by investigators. So eventually, he confessed to killing Ninghuan, but later felt unfairly accused multiple times. Through Zhao Jia's testimony, another important witness, the situation became more complicated. During the time Zhao Jia and Yun were together, there was one occasion when she answered a call from a family member and talked for about 20 minutes, during which time she affirmed that Yun was not with her. Zhao Jia answered the call at 10:21 p.m., the same time as the incident occurred, leaving investigators to suspect that Yun might have gone to the engineering building to commit the crime while Zhao Jia was on the phone. To verify this, simulations were conducted. A map of the route was drawn based on the actual situation at the crime scene. There were two routes from the location to the crime scene. Whether cycling, running at full speed, or walking briskly, it took less than 20 minutes to reach the scene. Therefore, there was enough evidence to identify the suspect. However, lawyer Ji Wen pointed out another suspicious point at this time, which was Zhao Jia's testimony after being questioned. In fact, she asserted that they were together, and Yun never left. However, later, investigators arrested Zhao Jia on suspicion of covering up for Yun. Another notable point is that after Zhao Jia was released from custody, she repeatedly sent messages to the investigative agency, affirming that Yun did not leave on the night of the incident. Furthermore, lawyer Ji Wen also pointed out that the two pieces of evidence provided by the prosecution were not convincing enough. Firstly, regarding the fingerprints and shoe prints left by Yun at the crime scene. According to Yun, he had been to room 308 several times to submit reports to the student union, and colleagues in the office confirmed that Yun was indeed there for 2 days. This could explain the presence of shoe prints and fingerprints at the scene, only proving that Yun was there. However, It couldn't explain why Yun was at the crime scene on the night of the incident and was suspected of being involved in the crime. Meanwhile, the fingerprints and shoe prints of others at the scene were not extracted. Additionally, there was another crucial piece of evidence: the suspicious fabric found in Yun's bag. Yun was conducting surveys and mapping and had frequent contact with ropes. Therefore, having such fabric and debris in his bag was normal. Thus, Yun couldn't be convicted. At this point, the question arises: if Yun didn't commit the crime, then who killed Ninghuan? Suspicions began to shift to Hua Zhuang, who witnessed Yun committing a crime related to the case. However, initially, Hua Zhuang only said he witnessed the murder and didn't know anything else, until the police found significant evidence in his drawer, including a cup containing a piece of paper from Hua Zhuang's fingerprints and traces of tranquilizers. Hua Zhuang, realizing he couldn't escape the charges, explained everything. He asserted that everything was done at Yun's request, from the murder to the terrifying rope in his hand. But Hua Zhuang saw the murderer, so why would he help? As days went by, Hua Zhuang's confession became increasingly suspicious. But if Hua Zhuang is the murderer, what was his motive for killing his fellow student? After searching Hua Zhuang's room, they found a diary containing haunting clues. The latest entry wrote, "My ideas are not as good as Ninghuan's. I hear the pain, and I don't know how to feel it." These writings revealed Hua Zhuang's jealousy and dissatisfaction when being compared to Ninghuan. It seems he had a motive for murder. So, who is the real culprit in this case? At the second trial, Yun's hopes were dashed when his appeal was rejected, and the initial verdict was upheld. However, on August 1, 2005, the Supreme Court of Hubei Province suddenly ruled that there were some unclear facts. On December 2, 2005, the People's Court of Tongren continued to bring this case to justice. In the fierce legal battle, lawyer Zhi Wen wrote powerful defenses for Yun. He devoted himself and was dedicated to uncovering the truth. However, his efforts couldn't save Yun from a death sentence, while Hua Zhuang was sentenced to life imprisonment. Yun seemed to sink into despair, becoming weary and despondent. In this difficult time, lawyer Zhi Wen wrote motivational letters to encourage him. "In our country, most criminal cases are handled properly. The case of injustice are few. It's unfortunate that you've fallen into this situation. Trust the government. Someday you will be treated fairly." Zhi Wen wrote 3 such letters, sending small rays of hope into Yun's heart. In 2008, he filed an appeal to the Supreme People's Court, and in September of the same year, the Supreme Court finally overturned the death sentence. The case was sent back for retrial and returned to its original starting point. On June 25, 2010, in the same case, similar evidence pushed Yun into a third death sentence, while Hua Zhuang's life sentence remained unchanged. A year later, Yun's third appeal was conducted. Once again, the High Provincial People's Court of Hubei intervened and sent the best detectives to solve the case. Finally, on July 21, 2015, the Tongren People's Court issued the fourth trial verdict. The 34-page verdict analyzed the evidence in detail. Firstly, there was not enough evidence to determine Yun's motive for murder. Secondly, there was not enough evidence to determine if Yun had enough time to commit the crime. Zhao Jia's testimony and suspicious clues in Yun's bag were deemed unreliable. The investigation experiments conducted by the police were also deemed subjective. The vague truth and incomplete evidence led to Yun's acquittal and release in court. Meanwhile, there was one person who had relevant evidence and a motive for murder throughout the investigation, and that was Hua Zhuang. Ultimately, with the evidence along with his previous confession, the court ruled Hua Zhuang's behavior as intentional homicide. He was ultimately sentenced to life imprisonment and stripped of political rights for life. The 12-year lawsuit became one of the most tense legal battles of that time. However, there was no perfect ending that everyone hoped for. Even though Yun was acquitted, he was still unsatisfied and carried many grievances. In November 2015, Yun filed a complaint against those who sentenced him to death in the first trial. The Tongren People's Court immediately submitted a request for state compensation. On December 28, 2015, the Intermediate People's Court of Tongren issued a decision to pay compensation of up to 1.27 million yuan to Yun, who had been imprisoned for 12 years. However, after 12 years, new beginnings were not as simple as turning over a new leaf. From a vibrant youth, he became a middle-aged man with nothing but the compensation money. A wrongful conviction had cost him his most beautiful youth, and the price to pay had become too high.